Taf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis will begin Taf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. We were in the middle of the discussion with the analyzing the Seder of the Avodah. The Seder of the Avodah that takes place during the day, during the week, and on Shabbos. There's also the special Shabbos Avodas of the Musafim and the Bazichin. So Abai was Masadar Marach Mishmei the Gemara V'lib Davashol. So what he said is, and we're middle of the discussion, that the order was Marach Gedolos Kaidemus Marach Shniya Shel Ketayres. The Marach Shniya Shel Ketayres is Kaidemus L'Seder Shnei Gzira Eitzim. The Seder Shnei Gzira Eitzim is Kaidemus L'Dishan Mizbeach HaPnimi. And the Dishan Mizbeach HaPnimi, and this is where we're holding that the Dishan Mizbeach HaPnimi is Kaidem L'Tavas Chomish Neres. The cleaning out of the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the golden Mizbeach, the inner Mizbeach, that preceded the removal, the cleaning out of the 5 lamps. The menorah had 7 lamps. The cleaning of the lamps was done in 2 segments. First 5, and then 2, and between them there was an avodah. Now before the Chomish Neres, the Dish Mizbeach HaPnimi preceded the Hatavas Chomish Neres. So the separation of the ash from the inner Mizbeach, the separation of the ashes, that preceded the cleaning of the 5 lamps. My time, so what is the reason? Why should we say that? Amar Abaye Gemara Gemir. He said, I have a Kabbalah. But Svor Lo Yadana, but I don't know the reason. The Rav Amar, he says, we do have a reason. Kid Reish Lakish. The Amar Reish Lakish in Mavir Nala Mitzvah. Reish Lakish applied a principle in Mavir Nala Mitzvah. If the mitzvah comes to your hand, you do it immediately. You don't pass over the mitzvah. You don't delay it till later. It says in the Pasuk Shmatan es hamatzais, which we darshan also the mitzvahs, that a mitzvah bol yadchal tachmid sena, don't delay the performance of a mitzvah. So therefore, as we'll see explained momentarily, therefore the first mitzvah that he gets to, before he gets to the mitzvah of the menorah, he encounters the mizbeach. He encounters the mizbeach hazav. As he comes into the heichal, first he comes upon the mizbeach hazav. He reaches the Mizbeach Hazav before reaching the menorah. So therefore, the mitzvah that's to be done with the Mizbeach Hazav, the Dishan of the Mizbeach HaPnimi, Mizbeach Hazav, is kaidem to the Chomish Neres. So as the Gemara explains, V'chi ayel ha'heichal, when the kohen goes into the heichal, b'Mizbeach Pagabaration, first he encounters the Mizbeach. Why do we say that? The time we learned in the Brisa was taught that Shulchan B'Tzofayin, the Shulchan in the heichal, the Shulchan is on the north side. It's pulled from the wall, it's drawn out from the wall 2.5 amas. And the menorah is on the south, and it's also drawn out 2.5 amas. The Mizbeach is in the middle, between the two. It's equidistant between the two. However, but it's drawn to the east, towards outside Kima. So you have the Shulchan, and you have the menorah, and then the Mizbeach is pulled to the east somewhat. So now when the kohen is coming from east to west, as he enters, he's coming from east to west, the first thing he sees is, he encounters is the Mizbeach. So therefore he encounters the Mizbeach first, and therefore he does the mitzvah with the Mizbeach before the menorah. So therefore he does the Dish Mizbeach HaPnimi before the menorah. Why do we pull? Why is the Mizbeach pulled out to the east? Why isn't it between the two? Why don't you have it in a row, 1, 2, 3? Because the Gemara answers, Kavan the Pasuk says, it says that the menorah is opposite the shulchan, opposite the table, we have to, so to speak, see each other. There has to be nothing blocking between the shulchan and the menorah. So therefore the Mizbeach is pulled out so that the shulchan and the menorah are opposite each other. Amar Rava, you can learn out from Reish Lakish, Mami Namid Reish Lakish, Avura Deroa Taitefta also. So when it comes to the tefillin, since we have this principle of Ein Mavir Ala Mitzvahs, so therefore we say to be Mavir, Dara Taitefta is also to pass over the tefillin Shel Yad. To do the tefillin Shel Rosh is also, first you have to do the tefillin Shel Yad, and then the tefillin Shel Rosh. Why is that? Because Rashi explains, first you encounter your arm, that's what you come to first. It's closer when your hand, when you put on the tefillin, your arm is closer, and then you put it on your head. So the first thing you do is your tefillin shel yad on the arm, and then shel rosh. Taisa says that's not the reason. He says the reason is because of the pasuk. The pasuk says, first, the kshir is on the yad, and then the teitavus on the head. So that's the reason that the shel yad is first. So what are we referring to over here in this halach over here? What is Rav referring to? He's not referring to the placement of the tefillin. He says he's referring to first in the placement in the zekel, in the bag. You put it in a way, it's placed in the bag so that the first pair of tefillin that you will encounter, the one that you'll touch first, is the shel yad. You have to put on the shel yad first, so that should be the first one when you put your hand into the zekel. That's the first one that you will encounter, so you won't be mavir ala mitzvahs. So then, in the sequence of the avodas, the next one is, so we said, there's the addition of the mizbeach hapnimi, there's the hatava of the chomesh neiros, the cleaning out of the 5 lamps, the hatava is chomesh neiros, kaidom ledam atomid, so that precedes the dam atomid, so it's the hatava of, it's the addition of mizbeach hapnimi, then the hatava of the chomesh neiros, then the dam atomid, the shlit and the zrika of the dam atomid. And then after that, there's the conclusion, the completion of the cleaning out of the naira. There's the last 2 nairas. My time, why does the dam of the Talmud come between the 5 nairas and the last 2 nairas? Amar Abaya, Ahu Babayker Babayker, the Shnei Gzira Eitz. It says in the Torah, as far as putting on the Shnei Gzira Eitz and the 2 logs, it says Babayker Babayker. It says that a double mention of boiker, putting out in the morning. It says, Ubir Allah HaKayin, Eitzim Babayker Babayker. Now, Deloitte Sriche, that is not needed to tell me where that the Shnei Gzirim come earlier, that they precede that it precedes the Dishim Mizbeach HaPnimi. That's not needed because, as we said before, we have a svara that this is a machshir. The Shnei Gzirim are a machshir. So it's machshir, it enables you to do the haktara, to do the burning of the keteres. So there's a svara. So I don't need that babayker is indicating that it comes earlier in the morning. It comes beforehand. So I don't need it for the shnei gzirei. So therefore shadina lahacha. So therefore apply it to these cases over here. Im eina inyan for the shnei gzirim, apply it over here. One of the bikers, so apply it to the chamesh neiros, and therefore it has an extra biker. So the lekadmu damatomit. So now the neiros, it says also the neiros. It also says babiker behetivos and neiros. But now when you take the extra biker, one of the bikers from the shnei gzirim, from the eitzim, and apply it to here to the menorah, you have three mentions of biker, which means it's even earlier. And one put it for the damatomid. Now the damatomid only has 1 mention of biker, so therefore the damatomid will only have now a total of 2. Then the kadmela tavesh neiros. Now you put it and you place it on one for the damatomid to teach you that now you give it an extra biker to teach you that the damatomid precedes the tavesh neiros. So Nagmor explains. One of the bikers of the Shnei Gzirim you apply to the Chamesh Neiros to teach you that it is before the Damatomid. Because you'll have, by doing that, a total of 3 mentions of biker by the Chamesh Neiros. And with the Dam, it will only be a total of 2. You only had 1 to begin with. You apply an extra one, so you have 2. And then put 1 on the damatomid and the kamala tavishtei neiros. Then, as we mentioned, the other one you apply to the damatomid, so it also now it has 2, but that will teach you that it precedes the shtei neiros. Now, even though by doing that it'll be 2 and 2, so how does it show you that the damatomid is before the shtei neiros? But nevertheless, but you would give preference to the damatomid, because the damatomid is the dam on the korban on the mizbeach, applying the dam on the, and it's the weight of the korban atomid is a machaper. A machaper will have preference. The Ritva asks the kasha, why do we split it up? Why don't we say we apply both bikers to the Dama Tamid and say that the Dama Tamid should come before the Chomesh Neiros? Why say you split it up? Maybe you apply both of them to the Dama Tamid, and Dama Tamid comes before the Chomesh Neiros. The answer is it would not be logical to say that because the Chomesh Neiros has biker, has an extra biker. So therefore, it automatically we would say that it should precede the Dama Tamid. So it would not be logical to say apply both of them to the Dama Tamid, and the Dama Tamid precedes the Chomesh Neiros. We see that the Torah gives a priority to the Menorah, and therefore we say split it up in this way. So therefore we say that we split it up in this manner, and therefore we have the Chomesh Neiros, we have the Dam of the Tamid, and we have the Shtei Neiros. Well, why do you split it up that way? Maybe I'll say split it up a different way. Maybe one applied to the removal of ashes from Mizbeach HaPnimi, and by doing that, you'll say the Nakat Mela Dama Tamid, that it will take precedence over the Dama Tamid. The Hachat Lasa, because now the Dish Mizbeach HaPnimi will have three, because there was two mentions of the biker by the Dish Mizbeach HaPnimi. There's two mentions of it because in the pasuk it says that it says so that you move the ashes before you're mated. And therefore here will be three and we apply one to the Dama Tamid. The Dama Tamid only had one to begin with, now it's a total of two. So by doing that you'll say the Dish Mizbeach HaPnimi goes before the Dama Tamid, V'chad Eshadil the Dama Tamid, and apply one to the Dama Tamid. Then Nikdam La Tamas Chomesh Neiros, then it'll come before the Chomesh Neiros, Afagav the Hachatray, V'Hachatray. Now even though they'll both have two, but Mechaper Adiv, but the Dama Tamid is Mechaper Adiv. So meaning, how do you know how to split it up? One with the Chomesh Neiros and one of the biker for the Dama Tamid. Maybe one is for the Dama Tamid and one is for the Dish Mizbeach Pnimi, but the Dama Tamid is before the Chomesh Neiros. Gemara says no. Imkein Afsuki b'mayim Mafsek. What are you going with? What avoida are you going to split to do between the 5 neiros and the 2 neiros? You have to separate the two, and you separate the two with an avoida. So with what will you separate them? So Hanichla Reish Lakish Damar, who says Lama Metivim V'Chayza Metivim, why do we do it in 2 segments? That's Kedei Lahargesh Kol Azara Kula. That's only to arouse the Azara. That's only to make it activity and make an excitement of it, and then therefore you don't really have to do a shapir. That's fine that you don't have to do an avoida. It would be enough just to wait and pause, make an interval between them, but you don't have to be mafsik with an avoida. So then you could say, theoretically, you could say it that way. But El Rabbi Yochanan says Da'amar Babiker. It says Babiker Betivus and Neiros. It says Chalkeil L'Shnei B'Karm. He darshans that the Babiker means you have to split up the Hatavas of the Neiros. 2 mornings it has to be done and split in 2. It has to be Machaliket within 2 mornings, meaning it should be done in 2 different parts of the morning. So therefore it has to be considered to be in a different avodah, which is by doing it, if you do first the first 5 lamps, and then there's another avodah between them, it's considered to be in a different segment of the morning. One is before a certain avodah, and the other is after a certain avodah. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, you must separate them with an avodah. So ma'ikal meimar, you couldn't say it that way. Therefore, you have to say there's an avodah between the 2 segments of the neiros. There's the 5 neiros, the Dama Tamid, and then the 2 neiros. Well, you're saying that it's the biker, the eitzim, the shnig zir eitzim is extra, and therefore we apply it, and meina inyan, and we apply it in this manner. Is it extra? Can you say meina inyan? We need it for its own halacha, for itself. The kamarachmana, the kadma lamaracha shniya shel kateiras, that it has to come before. The Shnei Gziraisim has to come before the Maracha of the Shnei of the second Maracha of the Ketairas. I need this babiker, that extra biker to tell me earlier, to teach me that it should come before the Maracha Shni of Ketairis. There's the first Maracha, and then perhaps, and we should say the Shnei Gzir, and then the second Maracha. And the Gemara says, no, you can't say this. Amar Le, Rav Ashi said to Ravina, V'lav mi oikmina, didn't we say that that's not the case? That the Shnei Gzir Eitzim is not before the Maracha Shni, it's after the Shnei Maracha. Why is that? Because it says, Aleha v'lo al chavertum. It says that you burn it Aleha, which we darshan on it, on the Maracha Gedola, that the Shnei Gzir Eitzim is placed on the aleh, on it, on the Maracha Gedola, but not on Chaverta, Bichlal, Diesel Chaverta. Well, if it's teaching you that it should be placed on the big one, the main one, and not the secondary one has to be there. That teaches you that the Maracha Shni Shel Ketairos has to be there already, that it precedes the Shnei Gzir Eitzim. So therefore, this Rosh is not correct. I don't need it for Gufa. In fact, it's not used for Gufa, because the Shnei Gzir Eitzim is after the Maracha Shni Shel Ketairos, and therefore in Meina Inyan for the Shnei Gzir Eitzim, we apply it in this manner. So we say we split up the Hatav, the cleaning of the Neres. 5, we do the Damatomid, and then the last 2. Well, why don't you say the opposite? 2, Damatomid, and then 5. The Gemara answers, Kevin the Asal Bahu Aviru. But once you start, you do the right, you do the majority. Back to Gemara, the Navich is, well then, you do the majority, why don't you do 6? Why don't you do 5 and 2, do 6? So, really, you can ask the kasha, well, why do you do 5 and 2, and why don't you do 4 and 3? But we say, no, it's when you do the mitzvah, the kasha is, do the maximum. The kasha isn't to do the minimum, you have to do a rive. So, you have to do a rive. Now, the misfora would be that do as much as you can. Do as much as you can, so do 6. Why stop at 5? Why do 5 and 2? The more answers, it says when he cleans the lamps, then he burns it. So it says the plural, it says it in the plural. That means there has to be at least 2. Therefore, there has to be a tivois neres. When he's doing atovos neres, there has to be at least 2 neres. So he starts off, he does a rive, he does 5, he doesn't do 6 because he has to leave 2 neres to do in the second segment to do neres, beitivos neres. So he does the most he can, he does 5, and then he leaves 2 to be mekayim beitivos neres, and he does atovos neres. Then in the order is Va'atavash Neres Kaidemus Lekatairas. So that precedes the Ketairas. The burning of the Ketairas comes after that. Why is that? The order Damar Kra Beitivas Neres, it says first Beitivas Neres. Then it says Vahadar Yaktirana. Then it says he burns the Ketairas.